This podcast is sponsored by nobody. Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today, I will be welcoming Sam Rush. Sam Rush played the nerdy guy Hunter, one of the three leads in Frank Mouris's 1985 underrated comedy classic Beginner's Luck. If you remember, back in March, I think it was, I interviewed Frank and we talked a little bit about Beginner's Luck. But today, I'm going to have Sam on and talk about, the full story. And Sam was also in the Jason Reitman movie Labor Day, and he's done a couple of little indie films and shorts, and he also was the co-founder of the New Century Theater, which closed down during COVID, and he was also a director and actor at the Majestic Theater. He's done a lot of theater, and we'll talk about all that stuff today, and I cannot wait. So yeah, here is my interview with Sam Rush.
Hello.
Hey, Sam, welcome to the show. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you, Tony?
I am doing fantastic. This is such a great honor. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Hey, well, I don't know if I would categorize it as such a great honor, but, hey, what the heck? But thank you. Thanks.
So, going back in time, did you gravitate toward acting early on in your childhood?
I would say yes, definitely. I was, I often tell this story periodically of like when I was like 4. I was in this nursery school, and during the playtime of nursery school, they had this like playhouse structure, and I found that if I walked up to this play structure and like ran into the wall and fell down, that people laughed at what I did. And it was this sort of like, doing the math, like, oh, I get it. If you do kind of like silly things and people laugh at you, or they think it's funny, then that's kind of cool. There's this little payoff there, And I didn't really think much about that until much, much later in life when I started doing, like more theater. But then I kind of made that connection. I was like, oh, well, yeah, of course. You've sort of been doing this kind of on and off your whole life.
Wow, yeah. So you did a lot of school plays and community theater and all that?
Not so much community theater. Like I did, some plays, like in junior high, like did plays where I wrote them. I had a really good friend, Brian Stevenson, who, we used to like write these plays and we would put them on for like, like parent night or something like that. And then in high school, did a couple of things at a public high school here in Arizona. And those were like, the drama program was like this after school extracurricular activity. It was just sort of people out there having fun, but it really wasn't that serious. And I finished up my high school at a different school. It was actually a boarding school up in northern Arizona, Verde Valley School. And that's where I met Maggie Perkins, this drama teacher who really showed me that you could take this kind of stuff seriously. She introduced me to Stanislavski and all of those kinds of people who really, devoted their lives to those moments of theater. And she was the first person who kind of hinted at that, people do make this a life choice, or like that you can make a career out of this if you want, which I thought was great. And, that sort of led to me going to college and studying it in college, and then trying to do the whole kind of New York thing. But, it was just sort of been this kind of step-by-step process for me.
Yeah, are you born and raised in Tucson?
Yeah, born here in Tucson, and went east for college, like in the late 70s, and ended up really spending a good chunk of my adult life there, and then only very, very recently have decided to kind of come back to Arizona. my folks are still alive and here, and so I'm, kind of reached a point where I'm kind of taking care of them at this point in their lives, in addition to doing, theater out this way. So.
Wonderful. Yeah, I lived in Glendale for 3 months back in 2007, and it was so hot I had to get out.
Yeah, I'm really sorry about that. Glendale is, that's a pretty hot place, especially now, even much more so now.
It was pretty bad. Yeah, it was pretty bad. I like visiting my cousins there, but other than that, yeah, I don't want to live there.
Yeah.
So you attended Connecticut College, and did you have any classmates there that we would know?
Yeah, like I went to school with Leland Orser, and if you like IMDb Leland, he's done a lot of film. He was in the movie Seven, and
Oh yeah.
he's been in a number of things. He had a short stint as a kind of semi-regular on ER later in its sort of like run. But he's been doing stuff, on and off. I had another friend of mine, Charlie O'May, who I did a lot of improv comedy with, and Charlie went on to do some I think he did a little stint in I want to say Walker, Texas Ranger, for a while.
Yeah.
But now he's doing he sort of gave that up, and he's doing real estate in New York, and is much more successful at that than he probably was doing, his theater stuff. So.
Yeah, so you come from an improv comedy background.
Yeah, well, I kind of, sort of fell into that, in college, they had these coffee houses that would happen every couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And Charlie and I decided to put this duo together that we called Dash Comedy, that we would write these little sketches that had a lot of room for improvisation and audience participation. Like we would pull a member of the audience out, and we would do Batman and Robin, or the Hardy Boys, stuff like that. And it was a lot of fun, and it got very popular, at least at the college there. But we never really did anything much with it after that.
Yeah, because I love improv comedy. I love stand-up comedy. I did it for 10 years, and yeah, I mean, I'm always not surprised when I find out that actors had improv backgrounds because they're so funny on screen,
Yeah. I mean, I'm in awe of people who do a lot of improv as well, just because it's there's I think there are people who are obviously much better at it than others, and I think the way cinema is being filmed now, because it's moved from the day that it moved from film to digital video meant that they just keep the camera running.
Mm-hmm.
And you got people like Will Ferrell, or people who just let the camera run, and they just do take after take after take, and then they pick the best one.
Right. So when you're going to college there in Connecticut, so you're going out to New York and checking out the theater scene over there?
Yeah, I mean, we all that's what we all wanted to do, is we all wanted to go to New York and and just really make it big, and that I sort of went down there at the same time that I was also doing a week summer stock up at Mount Holyoke College. Both Charlie and I did that, and that whole experience up at Mount Holyoke and doing that summer theater, that's what ultimately landed us Beginner's Luck, because we were both at that theater at the time that Frank and Caroline were coming around and just sort of looking at talent in that region. And they stopped by because somebody had recommended that they check us out, so they came by and we met them.
So it was just a standard theater audition that led to Beginner's Luck.
It was very, in some ways it was very unstandard. They came to see a couple shows that we did, and then we met with them, and then down in New York, we went down to New York and read for them, and then sort of didn't hear for the longest time, and then because they were having to do both, looking about the cast, but they were also in fundraising mode. They were, as an independent feature, they also had to kind of like, go out and shake a lot of hands and, raise the money for that. So it took a while for them to sort of make the decision that they were casting us in that. And then once we got cast in that, it was an even longer kind of stint before they got the green light to sort of go ahead with production. So.
Yeah. What did you think when you read the script? Were you scared at all?
Yeah, well, Frank and Caroline, the fact that they won the Academy Award in, I guess, 76 or something like that for Frank film.
674.
We thought, wow, these guys won an Academy Award. They must really know what they're doing. And then when we looked at the script, we're like, well, I don't know. And they kept saying, well, it's the script that we have. It's a work in progress. We'll be making changes. We'd love your input. And, so it was, we just sort of figured, well, if there's anything that was too bizarre or too weird, we would, figure it out, in that moment. So.
Yeah, because, I could relate to Hunter because in some ways because I was sheltered until my early 20s, and then when my mom let go, I went wild for quite a number of years leading up to my car crash, and so I lived the lifestyle and I experienced a lot of stuff I never expected to. So it was a very relatable film. I mean, I saw the film just before I was unsheltered and stuff, and I liked it, and I just think it's a very funny and underrated movie. But when I talked to Frank, I didn't want to delve too deep because he said making the movie was a nightmare. Did you find that to be so?
I didn't really find it to be a nightmare. I mean, I had a blast working on it because the people who were, the other actors, I knew many of them had worked with them before, and the crew was, wonderful. Everybody really seemed to sort of get along. I mean, I'm sure there was a lot of behind the stuff, stuff that Caroline and Frank went through that I probably just wasn't aware of. I mean, the fact that, we had to go and we shot this up in Boothbay Harbor, Maine in January. Mm-hmm. It really wasn't supposed to be January, but they were waiting and waiting and waiting on the kind of the funding, and then everything came together, and they only had their crew for a certain amount of time. So it was like, well, they'll just make it work. That's my sort of like take on that experience. I mean, they may tell a different story, but I seem to recall that it was like, yep, we're going to do it. And it's like, I know it's January, but we'll figure out a way to make this work.
Yeah. Frank said you were all kind of square, like you guys, weren't totally game for anything. There was a lot of questioning and concern.
Yeah, I mean, the way it was, also the way it was pitched, too, was that it was, it was like that sort of classic kind of Some Like It Hot, kind of fun, kind of,
Bob and
farcical.
Carol and Ted Nallis type of thing.
Yeah, like, that, and then it would be, they sort of kept saying, it's going to be tastefully done. Mm-hmm. Like it's not going to be anything that's going to move into the realm of like raunchiness. We want it to always be fun and kind of light. And, like I heard that part, and I remember, in the interview that you had with Frank, where he was talking about the bare breast scene with Riley, and how the producer was like, yeah, you gotta show some skin.
Right.
And, I remember that sort of came up, and that's how they did explain it. They were like, I know that this is like, we just have to do this, but we'll make sure that it's tastefully done. And, so for the most part, I felt pretty taken care of by them. I didn't feel like, oh my God, what the hell are they going to do? The only thing that we probably experienced, which I think any film actor does, is that, when you have a director who wants to do it a certain way and an actor who wants to try something different, the actor will be like, hey, can we try it this way? And the director will say, oh, absolutely. Go ahead and try that.
Yeah.
But the director knows that, that one's ending up on the cutting room floor. They're just doing that to get the actor to kind of keep going,
Yeah.
So there were things that I just wish, oh my God, that, that take was so much better. I wish that one had ended up in the movie, but, they had to make the movie that they wanted to make. So.
Right. Now you said that you knew a lot of the actors beforehand, so you all pretty much got along. You were like a family.
Yeah, that's how it felt. Kate Talbot. We had done shows together. Phil Kilborn was a very good friend, and we'd done a lot of theater together. So, Riley, I didn't really know as well because she was somebody that they found, for the movie. But Mickey, who was in that as well, I had known before. And then, the fun couple, I didn't really know them, but they were, they seemed really nice when we were working with them. So.
Oh, Cynthia Weigel and her brother Steven, they played the couple.
Yeah.
They played two couples. It seemed like.
Yeah, right.
I got in touch with Cynthia about almost 2 years ago now, and she was interested for like a minute, and she was going to bring her brother on with her, and then she stopped replying. And just recently I sent her the interview I did with Frank, and I still didn't get a reply. I don't know what's going on there, but I think that they are so friggin' funny in those scenes. I love it when you're tied up and you're like, boy, I think I have a fever, want to feel? And she gives you a shot with that needle, and I think it's squirted toothpaste or something.
Yeah.
That was weird. It's hilarious. And then she starts tickling you guys with the feather.
Yeah.
Was the whipped cream fight fun?
That was not fun.
Oh.
That was really one of the hardest things to do, in part because of the continuity, and we used real whipped cream. So we were under hot lights with cream. And I don't know if you've ever let, dairy sit out for a long, like after a while, it gets pretty rancid.
Oh, yeah.
And, we were like doing kind of take after take of these little, throwing the pie, but, the stuff. And once it would land on your face, you had to leave it there until they made sure that, they had everything what they needed from each different angle. And those lights, because it was a very tiny house that we were filming in, it got really hot with those lights. It was I just remember being like, oh my God, can I wash my face? Get this stuff off of me.
Oh yeah, I know a guy. He had to do multiple takes of having whipped cream sprayed in his mouth, and on the first take it was sour milk, and so they had to reshoot.
Ooh.
They had to reshoot that scene the next day with a fresh can because that was the only one.
Oh wow! Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So you mentioned you guys shot in January. Yeah, it must have been freezing cold during the vacation home scene.
Yeah. Well, those scenes that I remember being the coldest. There's that scene where we're having a picnic.
Yeah.
On the beach. It's sort of like a day where we sort of go and we do all of these little things together, and we're wearing the little bug hats and all that kind of stuff, and we end up like having this little picnic where we're sort of pitching I don't know if it's not the classifieds or something, but it was so freaking cold, and we had it's like when you're out there sitting, your mouth stops working. Like anything near 10 degrees, and like if you're out there for more than 10 minutes, it doesn't work properly, so you just can't really even enunciate. So that was pretty hard. And it was a very low budget. It wasn't like we could all run to our trailer, It was we just had to put on an extra coat between takes.
Yeah, do you remember how many days overall it took to film?
I feel like it was less than a month. But it was like maybe 20, 25 days, something like that.
So it was an entire January shoot of freezing cold and awkwardness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Kate Talbot, I think she's the best actor in the movie. She's got that classic Margaret Dumont, frame and face, and she's great at responding with really animated, facial expressions, and she had great comic timing. I think she was the perfect choice to play your fiance.
Yeah. No, Kate's a wonderful person. I mean, I haven't seen her for years, but she's a wonderful actor and just an even warmer human being. So.
I've reached out to her and Riley. I haven't heard back yet, but fingers crossed on that. It would be great to talk to those two. Are you still in touch with anybody besides Frank?
Well, like Charlie and I, we've corresponded a little bit lately.
How's
We
he
both
doing?
went. I think he's doing pretty well. Like he's got a good real estate business going in
Wow.
New York right now, and we both went to the National Theater Institute, and at the same time, and we just had like a reunion for a lot of the people that we went, in the class that we had in fall of like in 1980. And I thought I'd get to see him, but he had another event on that same night, so he wasn't able to be there. But, I've like emailed him back and forth a little bit. But I haven't, that's pretty much, I haven't talked to Riley pretty much since the movie. And like Kate, I haven't seen for a number of years. Phil Kilborn passed away, I don't know, like maybe 8 or 9 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the movie it's like a time capsule of how the world used to work before the internet. Because, in the movie, back then everybody knew each other's neighbors and everyone hung out with each other more. Now, you're lucky if you know one or two of your neighbors, because like no one talks to each other anymore. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a pre-internet and pre-cell phone day, where,
Yeah.
It's about the classified ad versus like swipe left or swipe right,
When you guys were rowing off in the canoe at the end, did you guys do that for a while, or it was just a quick couple minutes and then that was it?
No, we probably just did that for a while. Actually, that was one of the first scenes that we filmed. Actually, was that all those boat things, because there was that whole scene at the very beginning where we went to the island, and the funeral for the whoever's Riley's dad or something. I don't know, whatever it was.
Yeah. Did you guys have a wrap party and a screening?
There was a screening in New York that we went to. That it was in a very, very tiny theater, and Jacques and Annie, the cinematographers, were there, and Frank and Caroline. But I don't know, like some of their like donors, came, but it wasn't there wasn't a huge hoopla, about it or whatever.
Yeah, I remember Frank told me that there was a lot of screenings in like indie theaters in New York. They were playing it.
Yeah, and it was in the rotation on HBO for a while, because I remember coming home once and I was like, oh my God, Beginner's Luck is on HBO. Like, there it is. And I know that they submitted it to the Cannes Film Festival, and it was like, I think it just got trashed when it was at the festival. So.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Yeah, there's a podcast dedicated to movies that were released by New World Pictures, both the Corman era and the post Corman era, and
oh wow,
and I have a good relationship with them. I helped them get guests that I've had from movies that were made from New World. I'm trying to get them to do a Beginner's Luck episode, because I don't know if they've even seen that one yet. That would be pretty cool if they did. So we know how inaccurate IMDb is. Were there any other movies you did in the 80s that maybe they don't mention?
No, because I did that, and then was doing a lot of stage stage work, and then started my own company up in 1991, and then pretty much spent my time doing that. So
yeah, so like you were an actor director at the Majestic Theater, and then you went and you co-founded New Century Theater.
yeah, it was sort of the other way around. I mean, New Century
Oh.
Theater started first, and that was going for a while, and then the Majestic Theater, which started up about the same time. Just because it was in the same region,
Mm-hmm.
I acted in a few of their productions and directed a couple things for them. But most of the work that I did in that region was through New Century Theater.
What was it? The pandemic that shut the theater down?
Yeah, pretty much. Like the college, because we were based at Smith College,
Mm-hmm.
and there was Smith was, ultimately didn't want this summer program, because we were there in the summer, and they didn't particularly want the summer program there anymore. That I think they had their designs to kind of like refocus what they were using their facilities for. So our costs got more and more, to the point where we just decided that we couldn't do that anymore, and we started doing our shows in kind of different venues in the region. So we did that for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And the pandemic was like, that was pretty much like the nail in the coffin. We just couldn't, because nobody was doing theater at that point, and it was just it was easier to just kind of like call it a day after 28 years.
Yeah. Do you enjoy directing theater more than acting?
At this point, that's what I'm doing more, and I do enjoy directing. I enjoy them both. They're just very different disciplines.
Mm-hmm.
Directors start. Your process starts much earlier. And then once that show opens, you're done. Mm-hmm. And once the show opens for an actor, that's when they're really deepening their work. Really begins. They need that audience to kind of complete the circuit, of a play, and to sort of really tell them what the play is about. The audience is so essential for that. It's something that I think a lot of people who go to theater don't really realize how important they are for that process.
Yeah. Do you teach acting at all?
I do. Well, I mean, I did, for quite a while, and since I've come out here to Arizona, again, because of the pandemic, nobody even wanted to necessarily be in the same room. Now that that's sort of faded, mm-hmm. I'm probably going to, like, within the next year or so, offer a, workshop for, start up my classes again.
Oh yeah, the workshops are popular, especially on Zoom, in the pandemic world right now.
Oh yeah. I freaking hate Zoom theater though. It's just like,
yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah,
it's not
the
just
same.
Just a placeholder.
Yeah, it's not the same with the people in the room. You got to feel it,
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So, are there any plays you've directed that you were particularly proud of that stand out?
Yeah. I mean, I directed this. Do you know the Mr. Burns post-electric play? Do you know that?
No. It sounds like Mr. Burns from The Simpsons.
Yeah, well, it's based on The Simpsons. It's by Anna Washburn, I want to say her name is. And it's a post-apocalyptic 3-act play about sort of like the end of civilization. And this group of survivors, sit around a campfire, and they are sort of entertaining themselves by recalling a Simpsons episode. And they're just sort of like, telling the story of like, oh, and then this happened, and then this happened. And then Act 2 is actually a number of years later, where some of these same people form a theater group and tour around the various sort of towns and villages doing live recreations of Simpsons episodes.
Oh, nice. I like that.
Yeah, it's very cool. And then the third act does a time jump of like 75 years, and it's at a point now where some of the same Simpsons episode the third act is done as an opera, and so you have I don't know how familiar you are with like Simpsons,
very familiar.
but there's the Cape Fear episode.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's basically the Cape Fear episode. They sort of turn it into an opera. But because it's 75 years, with like post-apocalyptic, no television, it's like that game. It's like that game of telephone. By the time they're retelling the story 75 years later, it really only vaguely resembles the Simpsons episode. It's become its own kind of like Greek theater. It's just a really trippy show, and audiences either love it or they just don't know what to make of it. They just. We had some people, like older patrons, who just walked out of the theater. Yeah. But like we attracted so many younger theater goers who were like, "This is the best thing I've ever seen." It was just a great show to direct. I really had a good time with it.
Does Sideshow Bob step on rakes?
He does.
I love it. That was always my favorite part of the entire episode.
Yeah.
That and Bart running away after hearing Dr. Demento on the radio.
Yeah, we had to like come up with like prop rakes, that would sort of like do that kind of thing.
Oh wow, that is so awesome.
So that's been fun, and I also directed a production of Noises Off. Do you know that play?
Oh yeah, Peter Bogdanovich made a movie of it.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, it was like it's really like a play that's really meant to be a play. Because you get to see the set and get to see the set turn, and you see behind the thing, and then you get to see it turn back again, and it's really meant to be this live event, kind of like where the play that goes wrong, that kind of thing.
Nice. What was it like working with Jason Reitman on Labor Day?
That was quite fun to do. It was sort of unexpected. They had come to town to Northampton, and they were casting, and they needed somebody to help coordinate their local casting. So I met with Mr. Reitman, and we talked about the show and what he was looking for, and he was sort of location scouting in that area. So I rounded up a bunch of actors for him to see, and in the process, the woman who was kind of handling the casting asked me if I wanted to read for a part, and I wasn't expecting it, and I was like, "Oh yeah, sure." Mm-hmm. So that sort of led them to cast me as that bowling alley manager, where I had like one line.
Yeah.
But the process was fun, because the cast was so small that I was treated as an A-list, like an A, actor, where you get your own little like trailer, and you get your own chair, and you got to stand in and all that kind of stuff. And I never really had that before, so I was like, "Ooh, this is fun."
Yeah, you probably got some per diem too, huh?
Yeah, I mean, they took a couple of days to sort of do what they did, and now it's been kind of in rotation for a while, so I get some royalty checks from time to time from when it goes, but it was fun.
Yeah, good cast. Kate Winslet, Josh Brolin, Tobey Maguire, James Van Der Beek. Yeah, that's a good Hollywood movie to be in there.
Yeah.
You did an indie film called The God Question.
Yep, God Question. This guy Stan Freeman kind of wrote this script, and through this friend of mine, Keith Langsdale, who was also in the movie, he was really working with Stan to kind of like hone the script and really get it into shape to be filmed. So it was, it was a kind of a short project, but kind of interestingly, I was thinking about that movie the other day because it's all about AI. It was kind of in a way, it's kind of really ahead of its time.
Yeah.
A computer that gets to be so knowledgeable and that it begins to ask these questions about, like, the nature of the universe or the nature of God, and that kind of thing.
Absolutely. I mean, look at the strike going on now and all the uproar over AI. It's really ahead of its time.
Oh, yeah. We're at a really interesting time with that, and also with film and television, because of that.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're going to have to answer that question of, like, what's the human factor in creativity and protecting those rights of the people who make the stuff. So
yeah, it's turning into a Michael Crichton novel. The dangers of technology. Yeah. It's really disturbing. And you did this short called Bookmark.
Yeah, that was just something that was a local writer who put it together for a little festival. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That was fun to do.
So the film stuff that I've done has been just very sporadic. Like most of my experience has all been for, like, live theater work. Mm-hmm. And then every once in a while, like a film project will come along, and I'm like, ooh. But it's like there's such different muscles,
Yeah.
And it really is, I mean, film is about doing less, like anything that you think, oh, I can, like, add this in, is usually too much for film. You have to, like, take away as opposed to add anything.
Was there a point in your career where you said, okay, I don't want to be, huge or famous, I just want to be a working actor?
Oh, that's pretty much always been my position. I mean, fame, for some people, fame is a real driving factor. And for me, it was just about doing the work. Mm-hmm. That's pretty much why I started a theater company, is because I got tired of looking for work, because most actors spend the bulk of their time looking for the next job,
Yeah.
And I realized if I had a company, I could not only create that work, but I could create work for the people that I know and the friends that I know, and, have a place to do that. And it became, it was like, as long as we're doing that, it became less important to be, like, famous to the point of, like, oh, we're, going to win the Tony or whatever.
Yeah. Did you ever audition for anything that became, like, super iconic?
No, not that I can recall.
No. So now that you're back in Arizona, are you doing any theater stuff now?
Yeah. There's a company here called Live Theater Workshop. Mm-hmm. That does some really, really good work. And I've directed about 4 or 5 shows for them. And have another couple lined up in their season that's coming up in another couple of months. But, they do good work. The shows rehearse for, maybe 4 weeks or so, and then there's like a 4 to 5 week run. But, they do good stuff.
Do you direct musicals or just 1 or 2 3-act plays?
I haven't done very many musicals. I did an opera. I did a production of Carmen a number of years ago, and I would love the opportunity to sort of do a musical, at some point. But there's a lot of moving parts to a musical, and it would have to be the right kind of show and the right group of people to kind of do that. Have you ever seen the series Slings and Arrows?
I've heard of that show. Is that like a Shakespeare thing?
It's a Canadian TV series. It's I don't know, like it's got to be like 20 some years old now. But it's sort of based on kind of the Stratford kind of company. Mm-hmm. But it was ran for 3 seasons. But it is just it is like like for people who do like a lot of theater, it is like it just speaks to the tribe of, you know, live theater about both on stage and off. It's just a wonderful, wonderful series, and each of the seasons, they're not really that long. They're only like 7 or 8 episodes. They do it focuses on one of the Shakespeare plays, you know, Hamlet or King Lear, or, you know, and it's so good though, so funny.
I'll check
It's
it
worth
out.
checking it out.
I'll check it out. Those Canadian and British series, they only last like, you know, anywhere between 10 and 12 episodes. They don't do 25 or 30 like here in the US. Well, at least they did on TV back in the day. But now the limited series are like, you know, 10 episodes.
Right.
So I know the strike is going on, but is there any film work you hope to do in the future or anything like that?
I would like, you know, I would be really interested in that, but it's not, honestly, it's not a kind of priority in my life right now.
Right.
So I'm not pursuing it the way a lot of other kind of actors, either closer to, say, the New York hub or the LA hub. I mean, there's a number of people here in Tucson who do a lot of film production. I met a couple who do a lot of kind of commercial production, and they sort of are flying all over the place to, you know, do car commercials or, you know, this or that. But there's not, you know, there hasn't been as much film production lately. It's starting to kind of ramp up again.
Right. Well, Sam, thank you for being a part of Beginner's Luck, and I thank you so much for coming on today. I hope you have a great rest of your summer, and be safe out there when you're doing theater.
Well, thanks, Tommy. It's been a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. My pleasure. Have a great night.
All right. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Well, there you have it. Sam Rush, ain't he a cool dude? Nice guy, huh? It was a great conversation. I'm so glad that we got to talk about Beginner's Luck and his theater career and everything else he's done on screen. Well, until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes.